While I'm waiting for the next Steam to Switch platformer to be disappointed with, I've been thinking about Monster Hunter World a lot lately. Not just because I've still been playing it, even though a review has been published since the start of February, but because there's been an uneasy sense that I missed something in that review. Monster Hunter World is a good game, earning 91 out of 100 from Metacritic and 85 out of 100 from Gaming Trend. It did more than impress me since the game wasn't on my radar, I wasn't anticipating its release, and I was unsure of what to expect. But there's something rough about the game that I didn't quite articulate in that review that I want to address here. In fact, nothing I've read about Monster Hunter World, the good or the bad, really quite encapsulate it either. Everybody has their own opinions about the game. Some people think it's too easy, some people think it's too frustrating, some people have ethical problems with the game because they're vegetarians. Actually, maybe let's not beat up on Mitch Wallace. Sure, it's funny because look at this guy talking about something unrelated to video games with video games. But we might just not be the target audience? Perhaps? If you want to beat up on something, beat up on Forbes because it's a site. Just look at all those ads. I have my own beefs with the game, mostly erring on the side of frustration, but the game's still fun. Despite all its design problems, if you commit through them, the mountain of content available to you is worth far more than the $60 entry. To quote Gaming Trend, it may be a poor teacher of text-heavy interfaces, but Monster Hunter World is a great entry into the franchise if you haven't played anything from the series thus far. It's polished and filled with content, and you'll regret not immersing yourself in the series sooner. It provides a challenging yet enjoyable combat system that will keep you on your toes, and the variety of menacing monsters adds new challenges and keeps things from getting dull. You'll happily trade hours of your free time for more monsters to hunt, capture, and slay. But if you couldn't commit through it, I can't blame you. Sure, some people are gonna say, oh, you just didn't get good enough. But a game is supposed to make you want to get good. And if a game simply leaves you frustrated, it failed at that job. At a minimum, it failed at being a good game for that person. See, the secret to games like Monster Hunter is that you have to commit. By design, the game doesn't really offer space for casual gamers, though this title tries hard to convert them. Players may disagree on what is or isn't a committed gamer. Even though I've already dumped 120 hours into the game, the fact that I'm still not HR 50 and haven't experienced Tempered Elder Boys could be damning in this regard. But for everything that's rough about Monster Hunter World, Capcom put the time and effort into making it as accessible as possible to new players without compromising the core gameplay. Where games like Dark Souls 3 immediately throw you into Gundams. Monster Hunter World takes hours before introducing you to the first true difficulty spike, the Anjanath. This allows you to sink your teeth into the series, allows you to get a taste of that addicting gameplay loop, and so that by the time you're stonewalled by that Anjanath, you're willing to do what it takes for more. What you have to be willing to do, though, is confront all those issues the game has you've been ignoring. The game's a terrible teacher, thinking text boxes are the same thing as interactive learning tools, but the game's opening hours compensate for that. Assuming you know how to swing your stick and dodge, you can get through the game easily enough with just that until the fire turkey. Sure, the monsters become progressively more threatening, but not so threatening that dodge stick dodge isn't an effective strategy. The first time that Anjanath breathes fire and you get the burnt status, you're f***ed. I didn't even know you could naturally heal the burnt status by dodging 3 times until 20 hours later. Needless to say, the Anjanath destroyed me then, but now I destroy the Anjanath, not even bothering to equip the proper fire resistance. What's happened between now and my first encounter with the dinosaur is I've learned what tools are available to me. I know about traps, I know about flash pots, I know about setting up my menu to properly utilize these tools quickly. I also know, generally, the tails the monsters gives when it's about to swing forward or breathe fire, though I'm still pretty careless. Is it a stretch to say this? I got good, for the most part. Sure, I can't blow apart Nergigante naked, except good female armor is basically naked. But now grinding Nergigante is one of my favorite chores, whenever it comes up. But the game didn't help me get good, not by any reasonable definition. Sure, the combat is well designed and the tools are versatile enough to enable compelling gameplay, but the player has access to all this from basically the start. And access to the good part of the game does not make the game good. I was watching Game Grumps play Monster Hunter, and while ignoring the objective, as they do, Aaron has a little monologue about how playing earlier versions of the game was a fruitless endeavor, even though he really wanted to enjoy the game because it looked freaking cool. It wasn't until one of his friends decided to just dedicate the time to teach him that he was able to enjoy the game as he does now. Similarly, my playgroup, consisting of Best Girl, a Muffin, Lance Armstrong, and Dad, managed to get through any hurdle because Fake Arms-a-Lot played Monster Hunter Numero Uno, and at least knew how to research when there was a problem. In fact, he had already blazed through the mountain of pre-release content on YouTube anticipating the game's release when I mentioned my review. So he had the information to recommend to me the Insect Glaive and Fake Dad the Dynasty Warriors Weeb Sword. In both of these examples, your protagonist was only able to master the skill that was enjoying Monster Hunter with the help of his friends and the online community. If I hadn't had somebody throwing me research advice whenever it was needed, I may have never actually enjoyed the game as much as I did. To maximize my review, I was playing the game as blind as I could, which in hindsight is the worst way to play games like these. If I could do the review all over again, I would have devoured as much YouTube content and community articles leading up to the release and beyond as I could. The shortcut, tactic, or noble flaw of game design that this game engages in, I'm going to call disclosure overload. Disclosure overload comes from a working paper published in 2016 by Aalto University School of Business, written by Dr. Dirk Burbam, with language far from fluffy. For the most part, it's about how, in trying to be transparent and accessible, a source of content discloses too much information at once, and what's valued is lost in a forest of noise. Monster Hunter World's shortcuts for tutorials are text boxes. Lots and lots of text boxes. The game's out-of-combat retreat is a system filled with text and essentially spreadsheets. And then, when out on the hunt but before fighting a monster, the gameplay is through minimaps and numerous text pop-ups, not the environment. The game is opaque as all hell, but not because it's hiding anything. In fact, quite the opposite, there's so much going on at any given moment that it's difficult to focus on any one thing. So hearing that the Anjanath is so difficult for the first time, even though it's so ultimately approachable, isn't surprising. It's probably the worst thing the game can do to itself, hamstringing its inherent learning curve and accessibility for new players. I would even go so far as to say it fundamentally makes the game unfair. But Monster Hunter World pulls it off amazingly, and through this hamstring has received critical acclaim from everywhere, except Thomas Wilday from Galaxy News Radio. The reason Monster Hunter World is met with so much success is that the promise of the lucrative endgame doesn't just make players commit, it makes players bond and creates communities, acting as guides and resources to new players to the game. Capcom doesn't care about teaching you jack, but YouTube channels like Gaijin Hunter and Boomstick Gaming will happily answer any questions you may have, even the questions you didn't know you had. Online resources like Kiraniko are literally databases of every stat and value in this game and the other games as a result of data mining, and they would already have a complete world database for Western audiences if the game had released in Japan first like every other title. And all these resources are available to everybody, so assuming you don't have your own Arms-a-Lot Lance, the answers and direction to every problem you have in this game is still within reach. Assuming you have a stable internet connection, but if you didn't, we wouldn't be talking. I love this facet of the game because it opened my eyes to so much potential out in the gaming world. Secrets are dead in video games, and any content that must be simply stumbled upon is devoured by the internet in seconds. Ironic in hindsight, because it's not unlike how I've been interacted with other media in my life, like Magic the Gathering, that operate on spoiling all the discoverable content a couple weeks before the new update, necessitating the need for the community to come together to learn and help out everyone is fantastic, and when it succeeds, you get a game like Monster Hunter World. The game offers you no time to learn the ropes, but in fumbling with help, you meet and discover so many people and things it's breathtaking. It makes that massive endgame content all the better for it. And with that said, this is a terrible idea for new IPs. Monster Hunter World survived and thrived on word of mouth, on an already passionate community roping people into Capcom's promise of an accessible Monster Hunter installment. It was already known as the best series you're not playing, and while the AAA installment desperately needed the commercial success it's had, assuming it was always going to be competently made, I'm doubtful it was ever going to fail in this regard. But this works because Monster Hunter has been a thing already. They've basically gotten away with it before, and everybody appreciates what it is after the fact. It's kind of like how Bethesda releasing a terribly buggy game is met with universal praise and admiration, even though as a community we would destroy any new IP that did the same thing. Even though it's bad game design, it's part of the tradition of intellectual property and the company, so they get away with it. I only enjoy the game because I relied on resources outside the game's control. The game is amazing once you get around to finding it, but that's an ordeal you in the game are going to need help with if you're new. So when I read anything from somebody talking about how they didn't have a good time with Monster Hunter, about how they thought the game was ultimately unfair, I don't blame them. It is. But the point is, it gets to be a really good game in spite of that. It's still a really good game, even though it's unfair. Hey guys, thanks for sticking out until the end of this video. This script had 4 different rewrites, and the last version was 4,500 words, so I hope I didn't cut too much in the editing process. Monster Hunter is a great game, and I just wanted to share these post-review revelations I've had about the series, about why this game is so good yet so opaque. If you want to talk about it, leave a comment down below. Just talk about my dad played this game, so I know you aren't just yelling at me. If you want to deal in other trigger-worthy content, I might have some other videos up later, and also there's this really neat website I wrote for a couple times. You should check them out. Any video or article that I used as references in both this video and the previous million-word script will be included in the dibbly-doo below. In the meantime, I hope you find your own gun arms lance strong for yourself to aid in your hunting, and have yourself a beautiful morning. Peace!